Love it or hate it, it's time for another partner rundown. Jay, it's become clear recently that sport is a powerful way to learn and educate. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, Tim, this week and last week, more than most, I think we recognize the power that sports has to shape our public discourse. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is that it's one of the last few places that people of different backgrounds still congregate to watch a shared experience. Thanks to digital media, social media, we can go and seek out the narratives that we want to seek out. We can go out and seek out the news that we want to seek out. But when we get together and we watch sports, it's a shared thing. And the athletes, I think, themselves recognize the power that they have to shape that narrative and shape that conversation. So look, one, dating back to Muhammad Ali talking about racial justice issues, to Colin Kaepernick bringing up issues of police brutality, to now players that are speaking out when they walked out of the NBA games last week, it is important for us to recognize that these players are harnessing their power and they are saying, this is our experience and we're going to talk about it with you here today.
Yeah, and look, I don't think you can talk about sport as a platform to educate and inform with everything that's going on without acknowledging the fact that the NBA is leading this. And the reason the NBA is leading this is because the majority of their players are Black. And so they've really been forced into this situation. This has been forced upon them largely because just from a human level, it's something they've faced their entire lives, but also because people are looking to them. People are looking for leaders right now. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of places for that. But I'm really thankful that we have the leadership in the NBA and in these other leagues that we do have to tap into the minds of people who may not see things equally, right? Or see things from a justice standpoint. And so to be able to get the perspective of these players and understand that they're saying, hey, without these jerseys on and without people knowing my face, I'm facing this stuff every single day. And that's really powerful. And that's the power of sport.
Yeah, very, very much so. And we see that athletes have these immense platforms to speak out on public interest issues. But how can charity and advocacy organizations get the most out of their athlete or celebrity partner?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because I think as it relates to charity, it's for any human, it's easy to get excited about these things and want to help and figure out a way to participate. And for athletes especially, they've got a lot of things that are demanding of their time. First and foremost, their craft, but then also media availability, people around them. So it's tricky. The way we talked to Chris Dickerson about this, and he talked about really just being an open platform to allow athletes to participate in whatever level that they could. And so if that's a big name athlete who maybe doesn't have as much time, how can we use his platform as a lever to promote the climate change initiatives that we're going after? So I think you got to look at it on an athlete by athlete basis and kind of take what you can get, and then also try to put in place ways that they could maybe be more accountable to the things that they've committed to early on.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talk about on the show a lot, Tim, is that athletes are becoming bigger brands than the teams and brands that they play for and represent. And that's such a powerful thing because, I mean, think about when Cliff Averill came on the show and he talked about how bringing a Super Bowl to Seattle means that, you know, the city of Seattle, the people of Seattle show up whenever he does a philanthropy event, and they show out for him and they donate and they care about the causes that he cares about. And so if you are a charity or brand, and look, when Matt Stover came on, he talked about the hundreds of athlete-driven philanthropies and charities that are trying to do really good work. I think as a charity or brand, what you can realize is that matchmaking aspect is so important, is really spending the time up front and just saying, I don't want just the biggest name in my city. That doesn't necessarily always bring me the best value in terms of a partnership, but finding somebody who I know really cares about this topic is going to be really engaged. Spending that time up front is actually going to make for a better relationship and hopefully a better outcome for your philanthropy in the future.
So you brought up in our show with Chris Dickerson the role brands play as it comes to sustainability. Do you think what brands are doing is enough?
Tim, it's hard not to feel cynical when you see some of these brands and they greenwash themselves effectively by putting these words out like eco-friendly and sustainable. And the problem is these words don't necessarily have any sort of legal definition. So what you call sustainable, I might say is something different, or I might have a higher threshold of expectation for what makes something sustainable. And you can think about, the number of large brands, whether it's a P&G or an Amazon or any of these folks that are committing millions of dollars towards sustainability and then applying it to something like naming rights. And you're like, okay, well, how is that actually helping the environment and helping the cause that you're talking about? So no, I think there are folks that are doing really good work, but on the whole, I think we're still in the phase today where it's a lot more greenwashing than not.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point that these companies could be doing more, but I'm definitely in the camp as it relates to climate change that any progress is positive progress. You have to think about the history of where these companies, especially CPGs, are coming from. And they've always tried to put the purchase interests of their customers first. And so for a lot of reasons, that means convenience comes first. And so what's convenient? Single-use plastic's convenient, whether it's for your soap or your shampoo or going to the convenience store and picking up a soda and then being able to recycle the bottle. So I actually think the onus falls way more on the consumer here to demand with their wallets, to demand with their voices, more change from the brands that they know and love. And if those brands aren't going to make the change, then us as consumers need to seek out alternatives that are going to have a bigger impact on the planet.
I think that's a fair point, Tim. And, one of the things I know that you've been grappling with this week is around this idea of Nike's Mamba week and their jersey and shoe release. So tell me, was that a touching tribute or more of just fueling the hype machine?
Well, let's start off by acknowledging that this started with all of the best intentions. And the relationship between Kobe and Nike is a deep, deep rooted relationship. If any brand was positioned well to do a tribute to him and everything he stood for, it was Nike. And in a lot of ways, they did an excellent job with the content they put out there, the $1 million donation that they made to his foundation. However, what really struck me and a lot of customers that was so frustrating is the fact that they made this a limited release. So here you had thousands, if not millions of fans that were wanting to participate in Kobe's legacy by literally spending hundreds of dollars on Nike product, and they didn't even get that opportunity. So I know Nike's got to be thinking about this. I really hope that in the future, when they do this kind of thing, they're going to make it possible for everyone to participate because it's a really sensitive and personal issue for a lot of customers.
This is not the first time that we've seen brands sort of step in it when they are trying to get involved in a tribute or a large cause. I mean, I'm just thinking back to my NFL days where October is, pink jersey month and November is camo jersey month. And you sort of realize that like these organizations that, you're branding yourself with aren't necessarily always doing as much as you would hope for the constituency that they claim to represent. And it's sort of this whole thing around like the commercialization of every aspect of sports, and brands play a big part in that. Look, understand that there is monetization to be had here. Understand that the money that they make does ultimately go back to the players and does ultimately go back to the teams. But for consumers, it can feel really cynical when you take something that is as touching as a great ad, a beautiful tribute. I mean, Kobe was a part of their family for so many years. And so in a way, it does feel like a really beautiful tribute to a family member. But then you overshadow it and you do something that really cheapens that by creating a limited hype-fueled drop. And it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth at the end of the day.
Well, Jay, I always appreciate your perspective, especially when you're able to shine a light on some of your own experiences, like what it was like for you when you worked at the NFL. I enjoyed this partner rundown, and I'll see you next week.
Sounds good, Tim.